So here we go. So today's February 22nd, 2023. So thank you so much, Stephen, for joining. We don't have anyone in the meeting just yet, but we're going to get started. So just a reminder of this coffee chat. It's just to explore various careers in accounting. And so just a reminder that it is being recorded. So Stephen, it's being recorded, and anyone else that will be joining, and that way we can share it with anyone who wants to view this afterwards. And the goal again is just to create, that safe space to explore these different career paths, to ask any questions, and to, of course, clarify any ideas or thoughts. So what I thought I would do today is to actually talk a little bit about public practice. So the last couple of sessions, we focused more on industry roles. So we looked at a junior accountant role, and then we took a look at a senior accountant role and kind of compared that. And so what I would like to do today is talk about public practice roles. So, any memories you have, Stephen, specifically with the upcoming 2023 recruit season. So they did just announce their framework for that. And so one of the main resources they recommend, and so that's over here, this link, if I can get to it. Can you see this, the website, Stephen?
Yep.
Okay, so this brings you to, actually, is this the right spot? Hold on. Let me try that again. Here we go. Okay, so it should bring you here, and this is a pretty helpful landing page. Lots of information, but I think what a lot of students who are interested in the upcoming recruit season will want to gravitate towards the bottom here. So they published their guidelines. And so, Stephen, you may remember your time when you were actually seeking employment. So you as a recruitee, and then fast forward you as a recruiter. As we know, it changes every year. This year, Stephen, I don't know if you're aware, we only have 7 firms that agreed on a framework. So it does change, year over year. I think last year was the first year where originally there was no agreement, and then eventually a few firms did reach an agreement. And so similar to last year, this year we have 7 firms who have agreed on a particular framework. What that means for the other firms, it's not that they're not recruiting, they are absolutely recruiting as well, but they are not following the framework that has been set out. So it's already confusing enough. And so with this additional tier, I think it makes it even further confusing. So Stephen, you can represent all the potential questions out there that may come from that. But I just wanted to first highlight that. So we have 7 firms that have agreed on a framework, and this specifically addresses the dates. And so here, if you open, this is CPA BC that has worked really, really hard to, compile these agreements and to make it as easy as possible for students, for aspiring CPAs to follow. So one of the main things is the date. So for example, spring 2023 recruitment dates, the application deadline for these 7 firms, they've decided will be May 7th. And so the first interview and the start of offerings can start as of May 11th. And the most important piece, I think, here is the offer acceptance date. So if you receive an offer, May 11th, 12th, 13th, this offer will stay open until June 16th, so that as a candidate, you have the time to think about it a bit more and you're not rushed to make a very important decision. So we have 7 firms within this framework. And so what that means for the other firms who are also recruiting is that students will have to be very, very careful looking at their particular deadline dates, offer dates, and acceptance deadline dates, because it may vary firm by firm. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Yeah, I just want to add the context. So the framework is more strict rules by the bigger firms. When I went through Recruit, it was very structured, and then the next year, very unstructured. So in the case of this season, what I think Sarah's really mentioning is that for these bigger firms who are recruiting more students, there's strict guidelines, dates, and timelines involved. So if you want to get a job with these firms, we need to pay close attention to these dates.
Yes, I think that's the main theme. Be careful of the dates. And just to make a note here, they are often recruiting 1 year out. So they're recruiting for their 2024 season. I mean, sometimes they do have, openings for earlier positions, but generally looking 1 year out. Again, just read, each job posting very carefully. And as you have conversations with them, there may be different opportunities available. So with the other firms here, you can see this page is, much shorter, actually 1 page shorter, so not that much more, but there's an absence of deadline dates, right? So here you just need to be mindful of their particular offering, their particular application. And I'm going to scroll down here. Stephen, you may have comments on this. I think this is extremely important. So, if you receive any offer from any firm, really, one big piece of feedback that we've received is please stay professional, stay respectful. Once you accept an offer, that's considered, an agreement. And so it's very important not to renege on any offer. So this can cause confusion because we have 2 different frameworks. But just be mindful of that. Okay, so with these other firms who aren't participating in the framework, they may have a different acceptance deadline. And so once you accept that, that is an agreement. Stephen, do you have any feedback on that? Have you had any experience with that, with offers being reneged?
Absolutely. So my spouse works at a different school. She sees this with students, really unprofessional. And the reason why is because these firms, many times candidates get multiple offers, right? So that's why the framework was developed. Everybody gets the same timeline. So then students pick one, they stick with it, that's it. Otherwise, it causes a big issue with the firms and how the pipeline works, right? Because they're recruiting 1 year out. So if you're going to be applying for these firms, the most likely smaller firms, without these timelines, and you're also recruiting for these bigger firms, pay close attention to the timelines, and you have to be professional. Otherwise, it can really sour on people, and it's a small industry.
Yes, I think that's two big pieces, 2 big takeaways is it's a small industry, people do talk, and so you don't want to have that reputation. And it's an investment on both ends, right? It's the candidate's investment of their time, but also the firm's investment, just to ensure that they have found a fit that they want to work with. So anyways, we won't get too much into it, but just highlighting, please refrain from reneging any offers. And so back to the website itself, down below, they do have recruitment events. And I think this will be populated over the weeks to come. So a really good spot, to bookmark and check out for specific recruitment events. Oh, we have one guest joining us, Stephen. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to admit them here. And so here, I want to actually just gravitate towards a sample job description. So here, it's not too populated just yet because we're still early in the season, but I do think this will start populating in the weeks to come, as I mentioned. So what I have here, I just went on, I tried to dig around, not to, highlight any particular firms, but I did try to find a sample job description. So for our discussion today, so I found one with DMCL. I don't know which firm this is, but this is the 2 that I found today, again, a little early in the season. So I figured we could maybe chat really briefly about this one here. So DMCL is a local, I would say, small, mid-sized firm. So they have 2 offices, I believe. So again, be careful where you're applying to, which office you may be applying to. Okay, so here, with this particular posting, one thing that's interesting is that they're actually recruiting for January or September 2023. Okay, so they're looking currently for team members to join their team. So you can always learn a little bit more about the company, the firm itself at the very top. They'd like to talk about themselves over there. And then we scroll down here. And so with the job description, this one is very short and sweet. And I think this is a theme we'll see with public practice entry level roles, because it's often very similar. Would you agree, Stephen? Like the initial few years, depending which team you're joining, it will be pretty similar, different firm, different culture, and different clients, but the task itself is similar. Do you agree, or do you have different thoughts on that?
Some thoughts. I think if it's the same type of role in the same industries, I would say the work is very close across the bigger firms and across the mid-sized firms. But choosing the right sector and as well as the service line is important, and it actually varies very differently.
Yes, I agree 100%. And I think that's something we often tell students to be very mindful of, because, it may look similar, but, really does depend, and it has a pretty big impact to your future career path. Okay, so for this particular one, a few takeaways. So this one here, this first paragraph, I don't know if students will really pick these things out, Stephen. So for example, there's a couple of paths here. One is audit or their private enterprise team. So, this is actually a very loaded paragraph. It's saying that there's options, right? They have different teams, therefore very different roles, different clienteles. And so one is assurance, right? Audit path. So here you may be working for public companies, and the other being private enterprise. So you're working with, privately held, maybe smaller to mid-size corporations. So that's nice that they have that option, right? Whichever may be of bigger interest to you. Okay, the first one here, preparing tax returns, working papers, and various other accounting assignments. Okay, so this is a very general sentence here, but very loaded. Again, you're working, for a particular client on a particular file, and so essentially assisting the team preparing the working papers and maybe even drafting tax returns. So it's a very loaded sentence, this one. What do you think, Stephen?
Again, they don't make this easy on students. I almost wish there was a flowchart, and I started drawing one out when I meet with students now, because like when you read that, it sounds like, oh yeah, that's a tax route. No, it's not. So I'm sure Sarah has other articles and things to show, but very tough to navigate.
Mm-hmm. So again, this depends on the role you're joining, the company you're joining, the team you're joining. And so essentially, I feel like this is their way of saying you are going to do, whatever tasks that are assigned to you pertaining to that particular role. And so this does vary, greatly depending on the role that you are joining. But essentially, working papers and, assisting the team to meet their goals, right? And so therefore you're going to create various documentations and working papers to assist that. Work as part of a collaborative audit team in the execution of assurance engagement. So this, okay, so my takeaway here when I read this is this particular role, you are in an assurance role for either public practice or private enterprise. That's how I'm reading this right now. Again, once you get further along, you can clarify, but that's what I'm reading here, that this is truly assurance role. Stephen, do you see the same thing?
Agreed.
Yeah. So it's not a tax role. It's not, a quasi, role. It's assurance role. So, you better ensure that you love assurance if you're going to apply for this role. If you're looking for tax, this is not the job posting to go to. It looks like they have another one, a separate one. Okay, communicate with clients and third parties to obtain necessary information to deliver our services and strengthen our relationships. So I like how they add this actually, because I find that a lot of entry level junior or staff accountants discount the extent of time they will be spending communicating with clients. And so really working on the communication skills, the interpersonal skills, being able to, communicate complex matters in a way that your client will be able to understand, moving away from purely email, maybe actually having a face-to-face conversation or a phone call. So I do like how they have this here, because this is an extremely important component to one's role in, public practice is being able to communicate and distill, information so that you can have that conversation with third parties or clients. Stephen, what are your thoughts, or maybe just really quick general feedback on that piece? Do you find that, students are having success with that communication piece, or there are some trends that you're noticing, either they're very scared or overly reliant on email and not wanting to make that phone call?
So I'll talk about myself. I'm the person you're describing.
Okay.
Um, this is why they make you go do the networking events. And students, it's really important to go to the networking events. It's effectively part of the interview because you're going to be using the same skill sets to talk to your clients. Now, for me, I like the email, but I always call anyways.
Right.
I just have the email as a point, a guiding call. Like,
And
and
a
I
paper
tell that to
trail.
my clients. Let's schedule a call, but I'm going to send an email with talking points, and
Mm.
then we'll kind of annotate the email as we move forward. That's what I like. Everybody's discussion style is different, but clients will call me anyways, right? Even as a junior, even as a senior. So it's imperative to have strong communication skills. And when you're working with your peers and the partners and the managers, lots of communication, both written and verbal.
I agree 100%. And I have a similar style where I will send an email, either a courtesy email or talking points, right? One, I think it's a paper trail. That way, there's so many things going on, you have something to refer back to, but also, it's a discussion point, right? So, okay, this is what we're going to discuss. You then jump on a call. Also, just, sending a courtesy phone call, just saying, hey, just if you want to chat, right, we're here. What you may find is that some clients, they really hate email, right? They're busy running their businesses or they're running their operations. They get thousands of emails, every day. I find that a lot of, juniors, they love to send their essays over, and there's nothing that will get a client, more angry than a very lengthy, detailed email. It's something to be careful about, and that's the training you'll get. But as Stephen mentioned, those are things that you can start working on today, be it your writing skills or your verbal communication. These are things that you can work on today and display when you go to those networking events, because these are things that they are looking for, right? It's not purely the letter grade or transcript or whatnot. Okay, and then the last piece they have here, contribute to the culture. Okay, so again, focusing more on the interpersonal skills, right? Are you going to be a good team member? Can we work together as a team? And therefore, will you work well with our clients, right? So again, there's a lot of, interpersonal skills. And here we have a little bit of the technical. One, they are also, the firms are going to train, right? So I do think that, you really do want to showcase your soft skills, your interpersonal skills, and being able to attend a networking events gives them a glimpse of that. Any thoughts, Stephen, on that?
100%.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to keep scrolling down. So again, this one is very short and sweet. I think, other job descriptions may have a bit more detail, but this one loaded bullet point here is their way of just capturing everything. Here, firms, again, different firms, different cultures, different support systems. So larger firms, smaller firms, they offer different benefits and support. So here they talk a little bit about their mentorship program, their CFE training, right? PPR versus EVR. And so these are things that as a recruitee, you will want to look for, right? Because don't assume every firm is the same. Okay, so again, they will provide next steps. With the time left, I actually just want to quickly jump over to another sample I found. I don't know which firm this is. I just found this on Indeed. But here you can see they are highlighting a few things. They are a PPR firm, which is something I think all students prefer over EVR. And we won't get into that today. But these, again, they repeat it over here. We're pre-approved. They share their location. And I wanted to share this one because it gives a little bit more description to the role. So they are saying they are a firm that provides accounting, tax, and assurance services to small and medium-sized clients. So right away, I'm thinking a smaller local practice. I don't see any mention of public companies. So if you're keen to work with, big public company, this is not the firm for you. And it looks like they provide various experiences. So, financial reporting, but also tax and assurance as well. Definitely, smaller size here. They're talking about compilation engagements. So, not assurance, not review, although they are saying assurance work. So maybe they do provide some review work. It looks like they are preparing tax compliance. So T2s, T1s, T3s. You'll be talking a lot with CRA, again, working with a team and collaborating with others independently or within a team environment. Okay, so if we compare this job description to the one we saw earlier, again, you can see how they present themselves very differently. Again, public practice role, entry-level role, but very different experiences. And here again, they kind of give a little bit about their perks. So one question I would have here, if I progressed with this particular position, is I would ask about their mentorship program. I would ask about their CFE support, if they do have anything, because they're not mentioning it here. Do they have it? Or perhaps they don't, and that you will want to factor into your decision making. Okay, that was very short and sweet. But Stephen, any thoughts on this when you take a glimpse of a job description like this?
What's interesting to me is the salary. Now, when I went through Recruit, salary was pretty much non-negotiable across the bigger firms. I don't know if that's the case, and maybe if Sarah can point that out.
I don't think so, but I wouldn't be the best person to answer that. I think with public practice recruit, I think it's pretty set.
Yes, and the reason why is because I hear some students kind of talk about this, and for me, your salary at the beginning stages, it goes up quite a bit. You're looking at double-digit percentage raises every single year, and the real money comes post designation. So if you go to a PwC and a KPMG and try to negotiate on $1,000 to $2,000, that's not a great way to start your career. With this firm, they do put a range, so that I'm a little more uncertain of.
Mm-hmm.
But for candidates looking at salary at the bigger firms, especially the ones that follow the framework, I would say it's immaterial for those who have taken audit. Not significant.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a whole discussion on its own. And I don't know it. I don't have a good enough pulse on it now to really speak to it. That's maybe something that the Career Center or the student success coaches can speak on, or maybe the CPA BC rep, Rebecca. But my thought on that is with the firms that are recruiting with the framework, so truly CPA 2023 Recruit, I think the salary is what it is. And I don't see people really negotiating on that. One thing to consider, is the firms, they do offer a lot of other benefits beyond salary. There's a lot of training. They are probably also paying for your modules, which easily can be $10,000, $12,000 altogether. So these are things to consider. And so with these smaller firms that are hiring not within the framework, there may be more opportunity to negotiate, but do ensure you're comparing apples to apples. This higher salary may be because they are not covering the CPA modules, or they do not have a CFE built-in program and whatnot. And, again, they're outside of the framework, so there is a bit of, negotiation in general. But with the recruitment season and the framework, I think that's the objective, is that they've created this model. You kind of run with the model, and as Stephen mentioned, after you get your designation, that's where a lot more options are open to you, because you've completed the training essentially at that point. Do you think that's fair, Stephen, to say?
Absolutely. And I say this in my class. Think of it like a paid master's program. Think of it like a paid master's program. The true earning potential and your skill set really only develops, in my strong opinion, once you're done the CFE and you're designated. I trained many students at MNP. No matter how smart and how talented they are, they need the time and the experience. And most students, the way I look at it on my files, they lose money in the first 2 to 3 years.
Good point.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. You might be working really hard, working really long hours, putting in all this time, but you're still learning. And that's part of why the starting salaries in accounting are not that great. So I would encourage students to think of it like a paid master's program.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And there's a lot of training, again, different firms, different training, different culture, working towards whatever your future goals may be. But there's also the educational piece as well. CPA modules, or say the impact program are not cheap. And so if the firm is sponsoring or supporting that, that's something that candidates will want to factor in when comparing offers, right? Hopefully everyone's very successful, multiple offers are being shared, but ensuring that you're comparing apples to apples. Okay, so we're at 9:57, so very short and sweet. Thanks so much, Stephen, for your input. Again, I'll share this recording with others who weren't able to join today, but if there are any questions, we'll take a look at the chat. Otherwise, that's it for today. I think over the next few weeks, we're going to hear more announcements in terms of events, workshops, and just general networking events. So a great opportunity to brush up on the communication, the interpersonal skills we were talking about, and just get ready to show potential or not potential recruiters and firms, your style and your ability to kind of communicate and work as a team. Okay, that's all I have for today. So thanks so much. I'm going to stop sharing. Actually, I'm going to stop recording first.